Hello everyone. Welcome. Welcome once again. So, some of you who follow me on Twitter would have seen this coming, but I was kind of sat around the other day, looking at my inbox, kind of noticing that just about everything I get from YouTube these days is to do with my Elder Scrolls videos, and I like the Elder Scrolls games, I do. But once upon a time, back in the days of yore, the Elder Scrolls weren't really the biggest thing on this channel. The biggest thing on this channel was a lesser known series of videos about a game, well, really a mod, called Kaiserreich, Legacy of the Weltkrieg. Now, for those of you who've been around that long and have watched the old Kaiserreich series we did two of them. First one was my Russian playthrough, which is the only, well, it was the first, it was actually the first Let's Play I ever finished, actually, now I think about it. It was a lot of fun, and then after that we had a crack at the United States of America, and unfortunately that one ended because the save game corrupted. However, we're back with a vengeance. The revenge of the Kaiserreich, if you want to call it that. We're now running Kaiserreich for Darkest Hour 1.5. We used to, back when we did it, I think when I did it, it must have been like 1.2, possibly even 1.1. It was ancient. They've added a lot of cool stuff in since then. Added in a lot of the features from the newest builds of Darkest Hour itself. Things like casualty reports now in the game, which is kind of awesome. That sort of thing. So, for those of you who have seen Kaiserreich before, you can probably skip ahead a bit, because I'm about to sit down and explain, for the benefit of those who have never seen this before, what it is. Kaiserreich is a mod for a game called Darkest Hour, which is in itself a kind of rebuild, remake, if you like, of a game called Hearts of Iron 2, which is a grand strategy game made by Paradox Interactive, which allows you to take control of any nation on planet Earth during the period of 1936 to 1964. So the entirety of pretty much the Second World War and the early Cold War. And you battle it out against other nations, and generally speaking you try and make your way through the Second World War without being destroyed. Now, some bright spark, somewhere along the way, decided he'd make a mod for the game, which was set as was kind of an alternate history mod, and it basically asks the question, what if Germany won the First World War and Britain and France and America lost it? Well, the answer is, this is what happens. Well, America doesn't really lose it, because the main reason Germany wins the First World War in this little alternate history we've got going on here is because America doesn't get involved in the First World War. So Germany wins, and you kind of get a reverse of what happened in real life. Germany becomes a sort of big, very, very big, powerful nation, becomes kind of the centre of Western Europe. France and Britain both descend into complete chaos, and both have separate kind of revolutions which overthrow the establishment and replace it with this kind of vaguely communist sort of dictatorship going on. Russia is not communist, because the Germans, after they finished with the First World War, decided to march off into Russia and kill all the Bolsheviks, and then march back out again. So Russia is now kind of this fractured and very unstable democratic state, kind of the way it was immediately following the, was it the February Revolution? I can't quite remember. Back in 1918, or was it? No, 1917 anyway. So, yeah, the other thing to know about Kaiserreich is, yes, it's alternate history, but it's also very tongue-in-cheek. A lot of silly things happen in Kaiserreich, and it's deliberately got quite a sense of humour about it, so don't take it too seriously. You'll encounter some of the funny little tidbits actually as we play through this. So I'm not going to spoil them for you, but they're quite good, some of them. So yeah, that is Kaiserreich in a nutshell. If you're really kind of desperate to find out how it all works and how to play the game itself, I recommend you check out the older videos I did on it, because I did a lot of explaining in those of how the game works. In this, I'm not really going to do that. I'm just going to sort of dive straight in. So yeah, just to reiterate, this is in fact a mod for Darkest Hour. which is a game which is available on Steam. I will put a link in the description to both Kaiserreich and Darkest Hour. Kaiserreich is by no means the only mod for Darkest Hour. There's quite a few others. There's even a Fallout mod for it, if you can believe that. And the original game Darkest Hour itself is pretty damn good too. I don't tend to play it as much though these days, because if I want to do straight up World War II, I've started kind of moving on to Heartsfire 3 really for that. But anyway, so without further ado, now I'll explain what this is all about. Let's friggin' get started. It's time we got some good old-fashioned World War II grand strategy up in this channel. So yeah, here we go. We've got scenarios. I think these are new ones they've added in the newer versions. German intervention in China. I think that's set in 1921 or something. As well as this Russo-Japanese war we've got going on here. Which are sort of mini combat scenarios you can do, but the main attraction, the main event, if you like, is this Kaiserreich Legacy of the Weltkrieg. And in spite of this game, this mod being called Kaiserreich, we've never actually, certainly not on the channel, played as the country whose namesake gives the mod its title, which is this one, the German Empire. And shut up, phone. Let me just mute you. There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, this is the German Empire, and they've got a little bit of historical info here. Other major countries we can pick here. Obviously we can just right-click and select from a good old list here of pretty much every country in the world we could play as. We could play as Venezuela if we really wanted to, and I believe they may even have events coded in for them, because the Kaiserreich developers put a lot of effort into just about every country in the game, really. Regardless of who you choose to play as, it's usually an interesting experience, which, to be fair, is often not the case in the original game. If you play as anyone other than the main big players in the original Darkest Hour or Hearts of Iron, it was kind of often a bit boring. But in Kaiserreich, everything's a lot more interesting like that. So, main players we've got here are the Commune of France. So this is Communist France, basically. The German Empire, the Union of Britain, Austria, which kind of fell to bits after the First World War in spite of them managing to win it anyway, but it's not a republic like it was in real life now. It's still ruled by Franz Joseph something or other, I think. We have the Italian Federation. Italy is in two parts in this mod, by the way. I can't quite remember why, but the north is the Italian Federation, which is kind of religious and conservative, and the south is this kind of communist republic. We have Russia. We have Canada, which is kind of... they're Canada slash kind of loyalist Britain, basically, because all the loyalists and the royal family and stuff from Britain fled over to Canada when the revolution happened over in what is now the Union of Britain. So if you play as Canada, one of your main goals is trying to take back Britain from the commies. We have the United States of America, of course, we have Japan, and we have the Qing Empire. So yeah, there are no communists in China in this version of history. Don't really know why, but there is a German-backed Chinese emperor. So this guy, Puyi. So there we go. Anyway, we're going to be playing it as the German Empire, because we have not done that before, and they're one of the most interesting nations in the game, arguably one of the most worked on in the game as well, because they're kind of the main focus of the whole thing. So, that's what we're going to do. Well, for the benefit of you guys, I will read out this text here. These Kaiserreich videos, by the way, I am probably going to break from my usual process and upload these in 1080p rather than 720p. Normally I don't bother with 1080p because once the video itself gets onto YouTube, the difference in quality seems to be very, very, very negligible. It's really not worth the extra file size as far as I'm concerned when it comes to things like Skyrim. But in this, I'm playing this game in resolution of 1080p. Sorry, well, you know, 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p, I guess. But it does mean the text is quite small on the screen, so for the benefit of you guys, I will be uploading this in 1080p so that you can read all this stuff. on the screen. It's not essential, but you may like to be able to actually see what all the numbers and stuff are. So, anyway. There we get started. Oh, by the way, yeah, I apologise if I'm a bit nasally and stuff. I kind of really just only just woke up, and I'm just doing this pretty much just straight after eating breakfast. So, but anyway. German Empire Historical Info. In March 1919, after 3.5 years of attritional warfare, the German offensive on the Western Front finally succeeded in overrunning the Entente defences. French morale collapsed along with her army against the onslaught of the Reichswehr, as the Reichswehr exploited the breakthrough and marched towards Paris and the Loire Valley. As the army collapsed, the exhausted French surrendered and allowed the German army to occupy their proud nation. Following this stunning victory, German troops were rapidly sent to the existing Italian and Turkish fronts and forced entry into the lightly defended parts of northwestern Italy. With the arrival of these veteran troops, the Central Powers defeated both the British and Italian armies, restoring Ottoman power in the Middle East and occupying northern Italy. The war with Britain and the remaining Entente forces overseas dragged on inconclusively until 1921, when a peace with honour was secured, ending the Weltkrieg. That's a recurring thing, by the way. People in this game and in the events and stuff, the First World War is actually referred to as the Weltkrieg because, you know, the lingua franca is becoming German now instead of English, so people are using German words and terms, like Weltkrieg instead of World War, for example. Not everything was well within Germany, though. 7 years of war had pushed their population to the brink of starvation. German industry stagnated following the war's end, as demand was slashed and the costs to the government mounted as they were forced to subsidise conversion back to domestic production. Struggled to feed its population and fought the ever-present danger of inflation that had arisen from printing money to fund the war effort. In 1924, Admiral Tirpitz became Chancellor and his policy started a golden age of German Weltpolitik, bringing the economy under control through regulating the markets, subsidizing food imports with money gained from reparations and the sale of technology to Germany's allies and client states. Tirpitz's hugely successful regime culminated in the well-executed occupation of British colonial possessions following the outbreak of the British Revolution and the establishment of Freistaat Middle Africa. However, since the Grand Admiral's death in 1930, things have been going downhill for Germany. A general slowing of the world economy is decreasing the industrial output and national income as other nations recover their manufacturing power. And growing nationalism in Germany's eastern clients is starting to cause tensions as both populations and governments begin to drift away from the Reich. In 1936, Imperial Germany stands at a crossroads. The cracks that are beginning to appear in the mighty empire are slowly widening, and our ancestral army enemies are getting stronger once more. So, there you go. That's Germany in a nutshell. They are, in this game, they're a very interesting nation to play as. Perhaps a little less challenging than the previous two we did, Russia and the United States. They're still pretty challenging, but the main thing is playing as the Germans in this game seems to be a little more forgiving. With the Ruskies and the Americans, if you pick the wrong choices when the events pop up and things, you can often shoot yourself in the foot and only realise you've done it a few hours later. Whereas with the Germans, you're kind of alright, generally speaking. They get loads of events and stuff, but you won't be crippled by any of them, thankfully. So they're a bit more forgiving, although it can be pretty tough to play as them and it can drag on for a while, but it's pretty cool. I wanted to play as the Germans anyway because when I first got Hearts of Iron 2 back in the day, the first country I played as was Germany. They've probably got one of the more interesting campaigns to do. Same is true in Kaiserreich. A lot of it depends on sort of the random stuff that goes on in the world nearby and stuff, but you know, they're still pretty cool. And also, you know, whenever I play as the Germans in regular Hearts of Iron, I get this sort of nagging feeling of guilt when I realise that I am essentially playing as the Nazis, so I kind of feel bad for winning. But with the German Empire, that's really not the case. I mean, sure, the Kaiser's a bit of a douchebag, but he's no Hitler. So, Anyway, difficulty is going to be normal. AI aggressiveness is going to... English, Dave, learn it. AI aggressiveness is going to be set to aggressive on a scale of coward to furious. Mainly just to make the game a little bit more interesting. If you put it to quite passive, nothing very interesting that happens. You know, wars generally don't tend to break out unless they're restricted to. Which is kind of dull, honestly. So I'm going to put it on aggressive. May even up that later on if I feel a need to. Game speed is irrelevant because you can change that in the game. Share countries is a multiplayer thing. Autosave is going to be set to monthly because I've had games before where I've been screwed over because I forgot to set the autosave. Use counters will be on. Yeah, I'm going to be using counters in this. For those who don't really know what those are, they're kind of military style icons that they appear on the map with little military symbols on them to denote what type of unit they are. You can use these kind of little 2D sprites of little soldiers marching around and little planes flying around, but they're actually very... they look nice, but they're actually pretty shit when it comes to trying to determine at a glance what's on the map. So I'm going to be using counters. I should just get used to it, basically. Democracy can start war on. Yeah, I don't see why the democracies can't go bum rushing other nations. Why not? This is Kaiserreich. That sort of shit just happens. End date will be just the default scenario end date. Full IC takeover will be off. Tech team takeover, however, is going to be on because, as I explained donkeys years ago when I first did this, that's what countries did in real life. When Germany was defeated in real life, the Russians and Americans went running around trying to pick up as many German scientists as they possibly could to use to their own ends. Werner von Braun, for example, the guy who designed the V2 rockets, is a perfect example. He went on to design rockets for NASA. So tech team takeover is on. So if we conquer an enemy nation, we can use some, if not all, of their old tech teams to research our own technology with. So which I like to think of as kind of a you know, a kind of a simulation of us actually nabbing their scientists and design bureaus that are willing to collaborate with us. So anyway, that's going to be on. And that's basically all the options, so let's get started, shall we? There might be a little break here, because this game's a bit funny when it records, when it goes between loading screens and things, so bear with me. After I am dead, the boy will ruin himself in 12 months, attributed to George V of the United Kingdom about his son Edward, Prince of Wales. That's kind of important, that is, actually, with regards to this mod. Lick them over there. Come on, Canada. Yeah. Lick them. Don't even know. Sorry, I have no idea. These kind of three posters here, by the way, they kind of represent the three main factions in the game. The Communists, the Germans, and the old order, like the old Entente nations, like the UK and the old French government that's exiled to Africa. But anyway, okay, here we are. I'm going to pause that. Start. Why do I have tips still on? Go away. Decisions available. Now let's see. Report style 3 is on. Good. Right then, so. This is the world, as you can see. I'll give you a quick tour of the world map before we get started. Here is Germany. It's pretty big. We still have complete control of Prussia, a fair bit of Poland as well. We also have Alsace-Lorraine down here, which is why France is looking a little thinner than usual. We control Belgium, aka Flanders-Wallonia, with a different flag, because this is Kaiserreich. You will find that lots of nations have completely different names and completely different flags for no discernible reason whatsoever. That's just how Kaiserreich rolls. So Belgium is not Belgium, it's Flanders-Wallonia, and it's ruled by Adalbert I von Preußen. So he's a German, basically. We've made him king of Flanders-Wallonia. It's a little puppet state, basically. It's a puppet of the German Empire. We also have over here in the east the United Baltic Duchy, which is also a puppet. We have Lithuania. We have White Ruthenia, aka Belarus, I believe. We are allied with them. They're not a puppet, though. And we have Poland, who are friendly towards us, but they aren't one of our puppets. We also have the Ukraine, which we are allied with. So that's kind of how that's going on. Scandinavia is the same as ever. Norway, Sweden, Finland. Finland, you will note, however, does control a little bit more than it did historically at this period, because it hasn't lost this territory to the Soviets at this point. You have a very, very weak-looking Russia up here, which is ruled by Alexander F. Kerensky. They're liberals. They're probably not going to stay that way for very long, though. Just to give you some perspective, like the historical Soviet Union's borders kind of were over here, whereas it's in Kaiserreich it's over here, and Moscow is only just there. You know, it's not very far from the borders of Russia to Moscow. But they've also broken off into a bunch of different states, like this Don Kuban Union, Georgia. Whose head of government is Lavrenti Beria. So history buffs will probably recognise that. In fact, if we go to... Yeah, their Minister of Security is one Yosef V. Djugashvili, who may or may not look familiar. He's an efficient sociopath, apparently. Sounds about right. Armenia, of course, Azerbaijan, Alash Order, Turkestan, and a very, very big Mongolia, ruled by the Mad Baron von Sternberg, who is an old Russian nobleman who just kind of went rogue and declared himself God Emperor of Mongolia, I believe, or something. It's quite funny, really. And you also got Trans-Amur here, which is actually a puppet of Japan, which is the area around here in eastern Siberia where Vladivostok is as well. So this is controlled by Japan. China is a mess. We have the so-called King Empire over here in blue. We have German-controlled areas of China over here. In fact, we have a unit of troops there, the Auslandskommando China, apparently. We have the big wealthy cities of China. They have been separated into a separate kind of mandate called the Legation Cities, which is jointly ruled, I think, by Germany, Canada, the United States, and stuff like that. We have Allgemeine Ostasiatische Gesellschaft, which is something I hope I don't ever have to say again in this Let's Play. But this is basically a kind of German equivalent of what, like the East India Company. It is basically a big German conglomerate which actually rules about half of China. It is headed by Alexander von Falkenhausen and the AOG Board of Directors. So there you go. I will henceforth refer to them only as the AOG. We also have Vietnam and Cambodia, which is kind of ruled by the Germans as well. A lot of the previously British overseas territories are actually ruled by Germany now, as you can see. Singapore is German, for example. Malaya is German. And so on and so forth. A lot of Pacific Islands German. Madagascar is German. Sri Lanka is German. India is split into 3 different factions. One which is backed by the Canadians and Australians, who together are kind of what remains of the British Empire. So yeah, we have Delhi as well, which is backed by them. We have the Princely Federation, which is I don't even know what they are. But they're kind of friendly towards Germany. And you have the Bharatiya Commune, which is based in Calcutta and is basically the communist section of India. Let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, most of the Middle East is controlled by the Ottoman Empire, who still exist by this point because they were on the winning side of the war. Egypt is a big-ass nation unto itself, however. We as the Germans do, however, control the Suez Canal. We also, I believe, control... No, the Spanish have Gibraltar, right, fair enough. We also have the Gulf of Aden down here. We have Ethiopia. Egypt, I already mentioned. We have Tripolitania. aka Libya. National France, which is what's left of the French Empire overseas, they are ruled by Philippe Pétain and Maurice Jeannon. The Kingdom of Spain over here, Portugal, blah blah blah. And then there's big ass state over here, which is kind of German controlled Africa, which is kind of just it is put into this big sort of puppet state known as Middle Africa, which is run by Hermann Goering. How on earth he managed to get in charge of most of Africa, I don't know. How he went from being a World War One fighter pilot to ruling most of Africa, that's anyone's guess. But anyway, it's ruled by Hermann Goering. He's as nasty as he was in real life, needless to say, but whatever. He's our nasty little bastard. We have the United States over here, which is not ruled by ruled. This makes him sound like an emperor or something, but you know, it's not in. The president is not, in fact, what's his face? Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt in this timeline has been assassinated, I think. So instead, the president is Herbert Hoover, and that should give you some clue as to what's going to happen to America soon. They're not doing so well, basically, in a nutshell, because there was no fair deal and stuff like that. New Deal, fair deal. I don't know American history. I'm sorry, it's been years. And then of course we have Canada over here, ruled by His Royal Majesty George V, and the Canadian Prime Minister R.B. Bennett. They don't really like us very much. I don't blame them, because we're kind of responsible for what happened to them. But yeah, there's that. So also we've got over here the Union of Britain on the other side, which is ruled currently by Philip Snowden and Arthur Horner, two prominent trade unionists in real life. So it's a big sort of communist socialist republic. Ireland now controls Northern Ireland. It's ruled by Michael Collins, who is not in fact dead. And they kind of like us. The Union of Britain really doesn't like us, though, and the French like us even less. They are ruled by Sébastien Faure, and they are something called syndicalists, which is a type of communism, I believe. Right, okay, Italy, like I said, is in two halves. We've got the northern half of it, which is ruled, I think, directly by the Pope, or at least he's the head of state. Pius the 11th. And then you've got the south, which is the Socialist Republic of Italy, which is currently ruled by Palmiro Togliatti and Antonio Gramsci. What else is there? South America seems to be largely the same. The only difference is Argentina is called La Plata for some reason. I don't know why, but they are. Central America, we've got Panama, United Provinces, Honduras, Central America, which is some weird country that probably doesn't exist in real life. They're socialists. The Mexico is socialist as well. Japan's kind of sitting chugging along much as it did in real life in this time period. They control Manchuria as a puppet. They also control Trans-Amur, and Korea and all that kind of thing. Some of these islands out here and that sort of thing. However, Japan aren't nearly as aggressive as they were in real life on account of the fact that in Kaiserreich timeline they're not ruled by this sort of military junta type thing, hell bent on conquering most of mainland China. So Japan, generally speaking, I mean, sometimes they go a bit berserk because this is Kaiserreich and everything's quite random, but most of the time they kind of just keep to themselves and do their own thing. Japan, they're not very important in the grand scheme of things unless you want to play as Japan yourself. That is. One day I may do that on this channel, but never mind. Right now we're playing as Germany. Okay, so here we are. Germany. Let's have a look. We're authoritarian Democrats. Apparently we are ruled by SKM. I believe that's like the German equivalent of His Royal Highness, or His Royal Majesty. I just don't know what exactly it stands for. Wilhelm II von Preußen. So this is Kaiser Wilhelm II, which you all know and love from your history lessons on World War One. He's still ruling Germany, although he's definitely getting on a bit by this point. Head of government is Franz von Papen. Foreign Minister is Friedrich Werner von der Schulenburg. Yeah. Armaments Minister is Hjalmar Schacht. Or sorry, Hjalmar Schacht. Right, there we go. Some of these guys you will recognise from Nazi Germany. Some of them you won't, though. The main difference between us and Nazi Germany is obviously that we're not Nazis, so you will see government ministers popping up in here that historically were probably done away with by the Nazis and put in concentration camps and all sorts of things. For example, later on, you can make your head of intelligence, I believe, or is it head of something else? I can't remember. I think it's head of intelligence. You can choose Albert Einstein to be your head of your intelligence division if you want to, because Einstein, in this timeline, does not flee Germany for America because he's got really no reason to, because there aren't any Nazis to run away from. So you'll notice things like that, which is kind of cool. But you also notice guys that historically were quite, influential in the Nazi government. So. Let's see, our Minister of Security is Johann von Bernstorff. Head of Intelligence is Karl von Schubert. Chief of Staff is Hans von Siegt. Chief of the Army is August von Mackensen, who's getting on a bit, definitely. He's ancient, I think, by this point. Chief of the Navy is Ludwig von Reuter, and the Chief of the Air Force, believe it or not, is Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, because he survived World War I, apparently, in Kaiserreich. And he's kind of taken the place that Goering did in real life. Because, of course, Goering was a member of Richthofen's Flying Circus, so Goering actually flew with the Red Baron, and became a prominent fighter ace in his own right. However, since Richthofen isn't dead in this timeline, he's our Chief of the Air Force instead, because he's presumably better than Goering. So there you go, Manfred von Richthofen, probably the highlight of the whole damn cabinet, honestly. He's pretty awesome. He has his own, you'll see each of them have, their own little sort of description, like Bank President, Ideological Crusader, Happy Amateur. Some of them, very few, but some will have their own custom descriptions, like Kaiser Wilhelm, for example. He has the description Weltkrieg Emperor. Wilhelm II is the current Emperor and King of Prussia, ruling both the German Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia since 15th June 1888. He led the German Empire to victory during the Weltkrieg and gained the support of his people. Von Richthofen has his own custom description, the Red Baron, one of the most distinguished aces of the Weltkrieg. Von Richthofen rose quickly in the ranks to become the commander of the Reich's Air Corps. Under his command, the German Air Force has seen a rapid expansion in numbers as well as advance in technology and pilot training. So basically, he's still kind of a bit of a genius, and I'm glad he's on our side. So technology, we've got our tech slots here. We've got the big tech tree here. Intelligence, blah de blah de blah. Economy. We've got the Graf Zeppelin, the historically never completed German aircraft carrier. The Graf Zeppelin, we're building that currently. And I believe, actually, ironically enough, either the Bismarck and Tirpitz aren't quite built yet, or we already have them lying around here somewhere. Our fleet is massive, by the way. I believe we currently have the largest fleet in the world. The Kriegsmarine is gigantic. If it's even called the Kriegsmarine in this timeline, I don't know. Like, the Wehrmacht doesn't exist. It's called the Reichswehr instead, I think, or the Heer or something. I'm not sure exactly. But in any case, yeah, we have a gigantic navy. Pretty damn big. The Union of Britain's got a fairly sizable one though as well, as has Canada, as has the United States. As has Japan, I believe. So we're not alone in the naval stakes. I think France has even got a fair amount of warships. So we can't afford to throw them away later on when we get into some naval combat. But we're safe in the knowledge that we do have the biggest fleet at this point. So we do have the upper hand, at least for a bit. We do have a distinct lack of aircraft carriers, though, which is something we'll need to sort out. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. This is just going to be the intro video, I guess. And when I come back, we're actually going to get started and do this shit. This Scheiße, I should say. So, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're interested. Kaiserreich is back, people. It's back. It's here to stay, hopefully. At least until I get horribly defeated, anyway, you know. You know what it's like when I play this game. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.